Yeah, I sit pretty close, so.
Do you want a chair to put that laptop on so you're not bending all over?
If you don't mind, that would be
Yeah.
excellent.
Yeah, I saw that. So let's take care of that.
The little magic closet behind the curtain.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome. What time are we starting?
We'll start right at 6.
Okay.
As long as they're gonna try to get them moving up here pretty soon.
Okay.
Can you bring up the light for this person?
Sure.
Are you iris to open? Is it good?
Yeah. You want to look? Is that good? Yes. Okay.
Thank you.
All right.
Yeah, well, he turned it back down. So.
Are you really not sitting with your mom?
Nope.
Are you serious?
Yep.
My children won't sit with me.
That's his idea.
Thanks, guys. You're gonna have to keep with them. Now I have to embarrass them when I sit. That's how this goes.
I can't remember what the time was. So this absolutely. So I can just choose to tell everything but. I kid you not. It was the first question. It was a tough one. And the thing is, they were the greatest guys. Like they you know, they were just less than my and I took it exactly. And I was like, it didn't ruffle me at all. No, they no one ever got to me. Like I didn't know that.
Good. Good evening. Can you guys hear me? Not at all. Yes? Project. It's high school theater all over again. Thanks. Wave at me if you need help. Good evening, everybody. It's so good to see you. If you don't know me, I'm Amanda Stanley, and I'm the CEO for DePaul Community Resources for just a little bit longer. And I'm so glad to have you with us tonight to watch the premiere of, I'll say, the first documentary by our organization, highlighting stories from folks who live with disabilities in the Commonwealth of Virginia and what that experience is like for them and what that can teach us maybe about what we can do. So if you don't know about DePaul, we're a nonprofit agency, but I never like to identify ourselves by our tax status. So I say we're a social impact organization, and the basis of what we do is really we build and sustain families. And many of you might know us through our foster care work or our adoption work or our mental health services, but we also provide services to individuals with disabilities. And at the core, like the core belief behind everything we do at DePaul is this value and belief that we have that everybody deserves to belong to themselves, to their families, to their communities, that every family deserves to have what they need to make that belonging possible. And when that is not true, when the only choice for care for somebody is in an institution, when people can't get what they need, or when getting the help that they need means also sacrificing their financial security, we believe that is a failure of our community and not the failure of people who have mental health challenges, who have disabilities, who have experienced trauma. So in that vein, that's why we're doing what we're doing here tonight with this documentary. So our vision statement is hope and belonging at DePaul. And in our organization, we've been around 45 years, and we're so proud of the history that we have providing hope and belonging to the people that we get to serve. But what is not true is that there's a whole lot of people outside of our walls that do not know hope and belonging. The story is very different out there, and you're going to hear about that tonight. So there's a lot of work to be done, not just at DePaul, but in the system we work in. Why we're here is that we are expanding our sense of mission beyond being a direct provider of services to people who already have access to help, to changing the system where that help is received. Because what reality looks like today for people with disabilities and what it should look like are worlds apart. So this is a step across a bridge we're trying to build to change the world for the people that we care for. The help that we're talking about tonight is not like extra help. It's not help that makes your life more convenient. It's necessary help. It's critical help, and it's help that should not be negotiable. Doing something like this takes a lot of work, especially when you're like a social service agency and your CEO says, like, let's make a movie. So this is something really new for us, and doing this takes a whole lot. First of all, it takes a vision, and I want to. This is where I thank everybody. So I want to thank our board. We've got board members here. Our executive leadership team is here for holding this idea, for believing that something like this can change the world just as much as the services that we provide in our centers. Doing work like this takes a lot of work. Our marketing team has demonstrated technical and creative and relationship expertise to pull this off. It also takes money, we learned, right? You can't just like pull something like this off without paying for it. And so I want to also thank our underwriters. What's really great about the guys who sponsored us is that they believe in our work so much. And they believe in the power of storytelling to change the world. And by underwriting this event and this documentary, they make sure that your donations go right to services, which is important to us. So our presenting sponsors, Pinnacle Financial Partners. Our visionary underwriters are Marsh McLennan Agency and Segra. And our supporting underwriters are American National Bank and Woods Rogers. So we're in a little moment here at DePaul, right? Giving care is our job first and foremost, but now we're also saying that we are storytellers. And building families is what we are known for, and now we are stepping into also building tribes. So you're a part of that, and your being here tonight shows me that you are open, right? Because we can't change systems if we don't understand them, and we can't understand them if we don't first show up and kind of open our ears and pay attention. So thank you for being here to do that. And there's a whole lot of empty seats. And we invited globillions of people. So that's also part of the work that needs to be done, is inviting more people into this story and making sure they show up. Because the change that we want to see happen won't happen unless we build a much, much larger tribe. Couple more thanks. Curtis, hiding in that, I don't know what that little orb is called up there. Curtis Thompson works with TAP. He's on our board of directors. He helped us get this space. Thank you also. We have two very special businesses here tonight. Hopefully you've already tasted the custard from Chris's Coffee and Custard downstairs. And Little Otter Flower Farm from Bedford provided all of the arrangements tonight. And what is special about those businesses is that they were inspired by, built in service to, and are employers of individuals with disabilities who have taken an idea that many of us might feel is impossible or unreasonable, and they've made it real, and they've made it rich and good. So thank you for being here. Thank you for helping us with this. And all of you, please check out their work, check out their websites. I think we have some little gifts for you from them on your way out. So I'm going to be quiet and join you as we watch together.
Tens of thousands of Virginians have disabilities. They, along with their families or caregivers, must navigate a system to get the services and support they need to live the lives they deserve. Often, individuals with disabilities, or those who care for them, come to a crossroad where they must face an impossible choice. The choice they must make is between two important things: financial health for the entire family, or quality care for their child with a disability. The care provider's mental health, or their loved one's physical care. Completing mountains of paperwork, or spending time providing care to the one they love. Every day they face an or, where someone must lose in order for another to thrive. Join DePaul Community Resources as we take a deeper look at the disabilities system in Virginia through the eyes of those who navigate it every day. We hope you'll see the or in these stories. We hope you'll ask yourself, what if it wasn't an or? What if it was an and? This is Jamie Sneed. She works with DePaul Community Resources and is the mother of a child with a disability.
People with disabilities and their family members don't want your pity. More than anything, they just want you to understand them. And frequently when our daughter was younger, we would tell them, we have a daughter with special needs or disability, and people would say, I'm sorry. And I would be like, don't be sorry. She's fantastic. She's fabulous. And I want other people to know her and see how fantastic and fabulous she is. So people don't want pity. They want you to understand and empathize with them and see that it is hard to raise a child with a disability. It's hard to constantly be fighting systems and people that stand in the way of them getting the services they need to be their best selves. So that would be the number one thing I would want people to know, is that we just want understanding and empathy and welcoming, but we don't want your pity.
So what is the disabilities system in Virginia? Well, the answer to that is complicated and complex. The system involves the Department of Behavioral Health and Developmental Services, which operates the Developmental Disabilities Service System, Virginia's legislative body, the General Assembly, Virginia's Medicaid program, and numerous other agencies and organizations. The system was created to support individuals with disabilities and those who care for them. But is it doing enough? Meet Glenna McVoy and her 19-year-old daughter, Joy.
She's a joy to have. I just love her determination. Like, she wakes up every morning smiling, like happy, ready, raring to go. And I was like, if more people were like that, this world would be a much better place, you know? Joy was diagnosed at birth with Wolff-Hirschhorn syndrome. She is also autistic and has developmental and intellectual disabilities. Caring for her is 24/7, all day, every day. Everything I do for myself, I have to do it for her as well, from putting her to bed to waking her up, going through the day, dressing her, feeding her, taking her to the bathroom. It's constant.
Every day, Glenna and Joy wake up and wait. Wait for life-changing services and support in the form of a developmental disabilities waiver. What is a waiver? Virginia has 2 waiver programs that offer support to individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities. They are intended to help children and adults with disabilities live successfully in the community rather than in institutional settings. The Commonwealth Coordinated Care Plus waiver, often called the CCC Plus waiver, provides attendant, respite, and nursing care, as well as assistive technology and environmental modifications. While there is currently no waiting list for this waiver, it requires those who have a disability to also have a medical or nursing need. This requirement can be problematic for individuals with a developmental disability who are otherwise healthy. The Developmental Disability Waiver, often called the DD waiver, encompasses 3 tiers of waivers that provide a wider array of services than the CCC Plus waiver. Individuals must meet Virginia's definition of a developmental disability to qualify for one of the 3 DD waivers. They offer similar services to the CCC Plus waiver, plus access to enhanced services and supports to help individuals live successfully in their community, such as employment and day options like community coaching, day support, or supported employment, and residential living options like supported living, sponsored residential, and group homes. There is currently a waitlist for the DD waiver, and eligible individuals are categorized as Priority 1, Priority 2, or Priority 3, based on their specific needs and available supports.
It's been 12 years. I probably expected it to be no more than a year. However, we just continue to advocate, and we've been through every iteration of every change of the system, and we're just trying to make it day to day until we can get more help and I can offer her better services and more services so that she'll have even more ability. I just can't understand being a priority 1 for 12 years. 12 years as a priority 1 makes absolutely no sense to me. And in every form of the system changes, she's always been a priority 1. So there hasn't been a time where she wasn't a priority 1 on the wait list. So we're just waiting and continue to wait. Hopefully something will come available soon. It's been somewhat difficult. I mean, my faith carries me. So with that, you know, like I said, I'm constantly researching, trying to find programs, trying to find things of interest that we both can do. But there's a daily struggle. I mean, it's struggle even mentally for me and emotionally, just, you know, that my hands are tied to some degree that I can't even do more.
While Joy waits for her DD waiver, Glenna struggles to make ends meet. Years ago, when Glenna was working full-time and Joy was going to school, Joy's health began to decline. Glenna believes it was rooted in anxiety, stress, and separation from her. Glenna was forced to make an impossible choice: financial health for her family or quality care for her child.
Well, she was having seizures every day for a while. It was for months that she was having seizures every day. And I would get to work, and sometimes before even I arrived at work, I would get a call saying she's having a seizure, you need to come get her. We would go back and forth to the doctor trying to find out what was the purpose or the reason, the cause of the seizures. And what I noticed is she was only having seizures Monday through Friday. So there was something going on at school, and the anxiety level there was causing her to have seizures. I couldn't concentrate at work. So it really wasn't a decision. It was something that her health mattered more than anything, and I felt, it was my responsibility. So I eventually resigned and told them I needed to be home with her full time. And because whatever she'd gone through, it was traumatizing, and she needed more one-to-one care. So we really didn't have a plan. Like I said, it was just kind of we were thrown into it, and it being thrown into it, you learn to adapt. My car was repossessed. I had to move. It wasn't easy. So it's just took it one day at a time, and we continue to take it one day at a time.
As she waits, Glenna advocates.
I would like to see Joy and others, be able to have the ability to do more, to be more accepted, and allowed to, reach whatever goals they have. As long as I'm advocating for her, I feel like she has a better chance at getting what she wants to accomplish in life.
For now, Glenna and Joy will keep waiting, keep advocating and fighting for a better system, and keep hoping that help is on the way.
Oh, I think it would work wonders. It would allow her time away from me time away from her. It would give her someone else to be social with. It would allow her, it would free up some of my time so I could actually make a plan for her, her care, and we could accomplish more goals. I would also be able to receive more services and take her to things that she enjoys doing and that will help her gain more skills. A conglomerate of things would happen. It would be life-changing.
Glenna and Joy are not alone. More than 14,000 people are on Virginia's DD waiver waiting list today. Over the last 10 years, the DD waiver waiting list has more than doubled. That's 14,000 of your neighbors who qualify and are eligible for the DD waiver, but are told they must wait. 14,000 caregivers who are without access to backup caregivers to provide much-needed respite. 14,000 individuals who are without opportunities to connect with their peers at day support or supported employment programs. 14,000 families who are without access to financial assistance to make ends meet while they provide round-the-clock care to their loved one. Ann Hallbach was notified in February that her son Tim, who has cerebral palsy, would be receiving a DD waiver. They had been waiting for 8 years.
When we were first put on the waiting list, we were told that it might take as much as 10 years. But I had a lot of hope when the system was revamped a couple of years after that into priorities. And we were told that Tim was priority 1 because of his needs, meaning that he would need services within a year. But then 6 years passed and he was never the one selected for the DD waiver. So that was definitely a hard time, and things began to get increasingly difficult for my family because my husband has multiple sclerosis, and his health was declining, his needs were increasing, and soon I was giving full-time care to both of them. You feel like you're making difficult choices all the time, that there are times that they both need something and you have to weigh out how to accomplish that. It's stressful for the caregiver to deal with those feelings. So when we finally got the call, I felt overwhelming relief that we would be able to make a more secure path for Tim's future. And I was also so grateful for all the people who helped me along the way to finally realize that goal for him. He wants to know that choices are open to him in the future and that he can choose who he will live with and who will work with him. And I think those are the main goals. He wants to be more involved in the community and to have those opportunities to form relationships.
So why the wait? Well, it mostly comes down to money. The system as a whole is underfunded, and funding must be allocated by the General Assembly to open more DD waiver slots and fund the providers of these DD waiver services at a rate that covers the cost to deliver them. Here's Jennifer Fedura, the executive director of the Virginia Network of Private Providers. She advocates at Virginia's General Assembly on behalf of providers of DD waiver services.
Virginia, like every state, has to prioritize how they're going to spend their tax dollars. Education is always an important issue. Transportation is always an important issue. Potholes get lots of attention, as do crowded roads, particularly in urban areas. But the disability community needs equal attention and equal standing in the system.
But opening more waiver slots is not as simple as it may sound. When slots come available, the Community Services Board that assigns the slots must have case managers to help individuals navigate the system to access services. And the organizations that provide DD waiver services must have the workforce to operate their programs. In Jennifer's opinion, workforce limitations are the biggest barrier to opening more DD waiver slots today.
In order to provide the services you need, you have to have the people to do the work. And we all know the workforce issues that we have. But because so many of the disability services are solely supported by Medicaid, if they don't, in a commensurate way, increase the Medicaid payments, then the providers, public and private, cannot increase the wages to meet the new requirements. And having said that, the new requirements are simply the baseline. You can walk into any local fast food or local gas station and see a sign on the door that people are paying well over minimum wage and a hiring bonus for staff for essentially unskilled work. What we do is very hard and skilled labor. It's very skilled labor. So we have to be able to compete with that. And so right now, the workforce is the issue, workforce is the crisis, workforce is the message. Ask me a question and the answer is going to be workforce.
There is no simple solution for improving the disability system in Virginia, but improvements are needed for those waiting outside the system, waiting for a life-changing waiver, but also for those inside the system who are also faced with impossible choices every day.
Hey, I'm Kim Misha. This is my son, Woody Misha. He's 31. When he was a month before his 21st birthday, we found out he had a rare genetic disorder called Wilson's disease, which is an autosomal recessive disease. My husband and I have a recessive gene. He got 2 of them. And his body doesn't get rid of copper. So for 20 years, he had a fully functioning body, but copper accumulated in his brain for 20 years. And we found out because he had a car accident. He hit a tree in our neighborhood in Midlothian, was airlifted to MCV, and they saw heavy metal in his brain. So that was a roller coaster. That was in November of 2011. And by February of 2011, he's 6'5". He was down to 130 pounds, and he had a feeding tube and couldn't talk anymore. So it went downhill pretty quickly. So our lives changed quickly, eh?
With the DD waiver, Bob and Kim Misha serve as Woody's sponsored residential providers through DePaul Community Resources.
My husband and I take care of him, and he's really total care, like 100% care. But he's all there. He still totally enjoys, he's still him. He still has the same sense of humor. He can't talk or walk or swallow, but he's totally still him. And the copper is in an area of his brain where it affects, like, none of his muscles work. He's been tube fed for 10 years. He can't talk. He doesn't swallow very well. I mean, like, literally none of his muscles work. It also affects his filter, so that the filter's gone. Like, he has much, like, his inhibitions are not really there so much. So he's totally him, but he's not shy anymore. He's totally, yeah. And it's just him. He's always been a real, I sound like his mom. He's such a good boy. But he was always a nice kid.
DePaul is just one of many organizations in Virginia that offer sponsored residential services. Sponsored residential programs provide families and caregivers financial assistance, guidance related to daily care and community involvement, healthcare coordination, and other support services. To be eligible for sponsored residential services, an individual with a disability must qualify for a specific DD waiver known as the Community Living Waiver. The Mishas are grateful for the Community Living Waiver and for the sponsored residential program, but wish the system would allow the program to be more simplified and streamlined. Navigating the complex and confusing system creates an or. Instead of giving parents and caregivers the ability to spend more time caring for their loved ones, they must spend time fighting for needed services and equipment.
It's just really hard. It gets exhausting. That's it. I mean, I'm not going to give up, but it's exhausting. Like to get a wheelchair, it was a year-long process to get a new chair for him when it's time to get a new chair. And it's a year-long of like following up on appointments and making every phone call. And it's just I can't imagine what somebody who doesn't have two parents at home taking care of them, I can't even imagine how they get the services they need, honestly.
Melissa Cash, who cares for her sister Beth through DePaul's sponsored residential program, feels that strain too, and the struggle of transitioning from family member to caregiver.
I describe myself as a loving person, a caring person, and I'm sensitive to feelings.
I became her provider in 2016 after our father passed away. And the reason was she was in a group home for about 8 years prior to that. And she went into then she went into a sponsored residential provider's home. And after our father passed away, it was very abrupt. She had such a hard time that I knew she just needed to come home. So Beth doesn't have physical challenges, and there's lots that she can do on her own. But Beth is very, very needy. So her emotional issues are at the top of the list of what I have to address every day, all day.
Over the years, Melissa has seen the way the system can work. In the early days, when the waiting list was much shorter, Beth didn't have to wait very long for her Community Living Waiver. Services under Beth's DD waiver have given her opportunities to grow and learn and be involved in the community. Melissa's residential coordinator at DePaul has helped her manage the paperwork and meet the guidelines to remain a sponsored residential provider. But she still believes the system could be better. A more individualized system with streamlined processes, more manageable paperwork, and a greater focus on the mental health of individuals with disabilities and their caregivers.
I think the hardest thing is they try to make it one size fits all, and it doesn't. Every person with special needs has a certain need that another child or another adult does not. So it's very hard to find a tailored fit for you. That's one of the biggest challenges.
Cynthia Hurt is also a sponsored residential provider with DePaul. For 20 years, she and her husband cared for an individual with a disability who we'll call C. Their time as compassionate caregivers has not been without challenges, but they watched C blossom in their home with support, with life skills, with love.
Well, the blessing is the ability to be able to give extended love, to show them a different way, to give them other options, to expose them to positive things, new ideas.
Seeing how they navigated challenges together, Cynthia struggles to picture what C's life might look like without them, without sponsored residential services, without the DD waiver.
And if it wasn't there, I can't even imagine how rough it would be for her. She could have been institutionalized because the support would not be there. It would be a roadblock.
Sadly, institutionalization used to be a reality for thousands of individuals with disabilities in Virginia. In 2008, the U.S. Department of Justice opened an investigation into Virginia's institutions for individuals with disabilities, called training centers. The investigation found that the state violated these individuals' civil rights by housing them in institutions instead of providing opportunities to live in their community. After negotiations, the state settled with the Department of Justice, agreeing to close the majority of its training centers and move most individuals with disabilities into community settings. Since then, Virginia has successfully moved thousands of people out of training centers, and institutionalization is no longer the standard of care. However, we're still failing people. The intent of the DD waiver system is to give people access to care in their own home and community at a substantially lower cost to taxpayers than what it costs to provide care in an institution. So why have we drastically reduced the number of people in state-run training centers, but drastically increased the number of people who are waiting for the DD waiver?
We are looking at community-based home situations for families to care for their loved ones in their home. And so I love that Virginia is making strides to look at family settings, community-based settings for people with disabilities. And that's promising. What's not promising is that people with disabilities sit on a waiting list for those community-based services. And so we have a lot of work to do, but we've also come a long way.
Virginians with disabilities deserve better. What if more people took the time to listen to them, to empathize with their experiences, to ask for their ideas about ways the disability system can improve?
Start with the process and the way that the scoring system, or even if there should be a scoring system, I think parents of disabled people should also be involved, parents and caregivers, in creating the process, because we know what works, we know what doesn't work. When you just have people with the education and no hands-on, sometimes it gets lost. And if I can enlighten someone and give them more knowledge about that so that they can understand that and also have a greater understanding as to why the waivers are necessary and how they help these individuals, I think that would be the message. Help me help you.
And what aid am I going to get for $9 an hour? You're not. You're not going to get anybody who stays with you and learns how to actually talk to Woody. Because the first challenge you have with Woody is how to talk to him, and he can totally talk. This is thumbs up, yes, no, and I don't know.
I think that there's a lot of talk about person-centered care and that is the ideal. I don't think we're at the ideal. I think everybody needs to be looked at all through the process as an individual, more than a set of statistics. And I think that one of the most crucial things is having more caregivers in the system and for them to be recognized for their contributions, to be receiving competitive salaries and benefits, because it's such an important job. And we've seen it in our own lives. You form a relationship, but then a person is offered a job that they can't refuse because the pay is so much higher than what is offered working with a person who has disabilities.
Well, I think sometimes when you look at documentation and you read in literature or laws, people need to sometimes take a step back and feel their pain or their anxiety. I went to a seminar years ago at Virginia Beach, and it was powerful. And what they did is they had everyone in the room, they said, close your eyes. Do not open up your eyes until I finish the speech. And it talked about, how about I scoop you up? You don't even know where you're going. And I say, I'm going to take you from your environment, which you're used to. And I'm going to tell you where you're going to go, and you have no say-so. So you end up at this home and you tell them, open up your eyes. This is your new family. This is where you're going to reside. How would you feel? What would you take away from that? Would you act out? Would you speak if you're able to speak? How would you let someone know that that's what you want, or are there any other options? And sometimes when you take a step back and see, how would you feel? So once we opened up our eyes, it was powerful because we got to understand, hey, how would you feel if that was you? What would you take away from that? So a lot of times when people make laws and make rules, they're making them based on what they think, not what they feel. And if they took that feeling, I think they would make things a little different.
What if those people who took the time to listen, who did their best to empathize, what if they took action? We hope these stories and the words of those with lived experience have inspired you to take action, to acknowledge that the disability system can be improved, and to start taking steps to make that happen. Here are some steps you can take to encourage change. Number 1, start conversations. Talk with your friends and neighbors about Virginia's disabilities system. Ask them why it's okay for Virginia, the 10th wealthiest state in the country, and frequently rated number 1 in business, to be the 39th state in the country for how well we care for individuals with disabilities. Share this video with them. Visit who'smy.virginiageneralassembly.gov and learn who your state representatives are. Our state-level elected officials are the only ones who can devote more resources to improving the system. Reach out to them. Send an email. Make a phone call. Ask for a meeting. Demand better for those we serve. Number 2, become an ambassador. Not sure how to start a conversation? Join our ambassador network, and together we'll make change happen. Number 3, give to help us spread the word. This documentary would not be possible without underwriters. To help us continue our advocacy and storytelling efforts, make a donation at depaulcr.org/donate. And number 4, create an environment of inclusion. Find opportunities to interact with individuals with disabilities and those who care for them. Listen to their experiences. Ask questions. Build relationships. And wherever you are, foster an environment of understanding, empathy, and inclusion. Embrace differences. During the production of this project, DePaul reached out multiple times to the Department of Behavioral Health and Developmental Services, DBHDS, and the Department of Medical Assistance Services, DMAS. DBHDS did not reply to emails or respond to calls. DMAS indicated they would provide a statement, but did not do so before we completed production. How can we move this system from being one of impossible choices to one where people with disabilities are empowered to have a voice and choice in their lives? Imagine a system that provides access to individualized care when it's needed, instead of one that tells people to wait 10 years for the services they need today. Imagine the life-changing power that system would have for the 14,000 people who are waiting.
I'm going to invite our panelists up to join us on stage. I want to thank you again for everyone for being here this evening. As we get folks up here, we have the screen coming up momentarily. First, I want to acknowledge there's always somebody behind the curtain who makes everything beautiful and come to life. And this is Allison Wickline, literally behind the curtain. Allison, along with Hello Studios, is responsible for logistics and beautiful production that you saw in that documentary right now. It would not be possible, though, without the folks on this stage. So I'm going to start with Cynthia, and if you will just go down the row. These are folks who navigate the disability system from various angles each and every day. So Cynthia, I'll start with you if you'll introduce yourself.
My name is Cynthia Hurd. I'm originally from Washington, D.C. I currently reside in Lynchburg, Virginia. I've been with DePaul's with over, I think it's 22 years. Good gosh. So I'm well versed, always learning, eager to learn new ideas and new suggestions. And I have a husband, George Hurt. He works with students with intellectual disability. He's a school teacher, and he works with all ages, so that also helps us.
Wow, I'm impressed.
Oh, well, thank you.
My name is Melissa Cash. My sister Beth, we have been with DePaul for almost 6 years. We live in Lynchburg, and it's challenging, and I'm learning every day. All right, Beth.
All right, my name is Beth, and I've been with DePaul's for 6 years, and it really has helped me grow, and I appreciate the people and the staff who have helped me. I couldn't have done it without y'all.
Amen.
My name is Gary Wilburn, and I'm the Vice President for Developmental Disabilities with DePaul Community Resources. I've been at DePaul about 11 years, but in case you couldn't tell by looking at me, I've been doing this for a lot longer in other places. But I continue every day to learn, not only from the staff that provide our services, but from the people that we provide services to. So it's a continual learning environment for me, and I'm so appreciative of being able to work with them.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Lucy Cantrell. I'm standing in for the Executive Director of the ARC of Virginia, Tanya Milling. I had to go west from Richmond. She went east because she had a previous work engagement where she had to be in Norfolk this evening. So she sends her regrets. And Paul says he's been in the business a long time, but look at my hair. Paul, I've been in a lot longer than you.
Surprised.
Hi, I'm Glenna McVoy, and this is my daughter, Joy McVoy. Joy is, well, she was on the waiting list. I'm happy to say that since we recorded, she's now been accepted on the waiting, has her waiver. So it's been 12 years, but now we are anticipating and looking forward to getting more services and Joy getting more utilization of services within the state of Virginia.
Amen.
I want to thank each of you for being here this evening. I'm going to ask a couple questions, and y'all just, whoever wants to jump in, and if anyone from the audience has questions, by all means, I think y'all captured like 10 plus hours of footage from just these folks. So what you saw was a very condensed version of each of these folks' story. There's a lot more to the stories than what you saw in 30
don't have an opportunity to interact with people with disabilities, what's one thing you would want them to know about what it's like to have somebody with disabilities in your life? Go, Beth.
To people to understand me for who I am. And when I was in high school, I had a hard time, and I hollered out for help. And I was in a private school, and I was on Who's Who among American high school students. You're welcome.
I would like to speak. People with intellectual disability, that could happen to any of us. You could be in a car accident. I just want the people to understand that we're all different. We all have different talents and different challenges in our lives, and we're no different than the next person. So just accept everyone for who they are, because like I said, you could be in a car accident and you could be on that spectrum. And how would you want someone to treat you if that was you? And that's all I want everyone to know, that at any moment, it could be your loved ones. It could be you yourself. It could be your husband or your spouse or your kids. So this could happen to anyone. So you ought to treat everyone the same and treat people how you want to be treated yourself. That's the main thing to take away from that.
If anyone here was surprised by the 14,000 number. I know we see you see and hear and speak to that number every day at ARC in Virginia.
Yes, I do, and if I can just take the floor for a minute. That number of 14,000 people on the waiting list in Virginia is comprised of about 3,000 people who are considered priority level 1. That means, first of all, they probably needed a waiver 5 years ago, and they are in a position where their community placement is highly at risk. Maybe they have a parent who has died. Maybe they have elderly parents. Maybe they have very high medical or behavioral support needs, and their system is just barely hanging on. And of course, through the ARC of Virginia, we advocate for that waiting list on a regular basis. So I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Can I ask you one more question, Lucy? I've been to Richmond with you, with a team of folks, some of them in this room, to advocate. What do you hear from legislators when you share with them that 3,000 people are at risk of losing their place in the community if they don't have it?
This problem has been going on for a long, long time. Like I was thinking today, has it been 2 decades? Maybe it has been 2 decades that Virginia has had a waiting list. So we have some legislators, and I think of Senator Edwards, who represents the Roanoke area. So he's been in the General Assembly for a very long time. So he's been hearing these stories year after year after year. But then we have the delegates who may change every 2 years because they're reelected. So it's a constant job of educating legislators. Everyone recognizes that it's not a partisan issue. The responses about it are, gosh, it's terrible and we got to do better. And we'll just have to see if we can find the money. This year, there was much more, I felt like, recognition of kind of the disastrous system we have here in Virginia right now. There are so many providers who aren't able to stay in business, and we've all had the effects and are continuing to have the effects of COVID, but the General Assembly had more money this year than they've ever had. So they did some good things in terms of provider rates, and we won't have any new DD waivers until July 1st, 2023. So everyone is very, in the GA is very accepting, willing to hear, but the rubber meets the road with the conferees. And what's really going to make a difference is all of you out there and us up here. It's votes. It's being in touch. We have got to have huge numbers. We're not a lobby that has millions of dollars to funnel towards legislators. So it's us and everyone else out in Virginia who can make a difference. We need numbers. Thank you for letting me answer that question.
Amen.
Thank you.
Glenna, I'm curious. You and I talked about hippotherapy, which is horse therapy down in the lobby. I'm curious what services for Joy, now that you have a waiver, you're going to pursue first.
Going to pursue services for her vision, as well as eating and just some of the more physical type things to get her muscles utilized more. And one of the big ones is speech. Trying to get her some speech devices or some things that can help her develop more speech and communication. You're welcome.
Amen. Gary, I'm curious, as somebody who is a provider of services for developmental disabilities, what struggles on the provider side, beyond wages, beyond finding talented help that will accept the pay that is offered through a Medicaid waiver, what struggles do
I
you
think
see?
that in reflecting on what Jennifer Fedora stated in the documentary, certainly workforce is one of the struggles that we have. It's the struggle that a lot of businesses and organizations have. And talking with folks across the state that are also providers, it certainly is a critical element as to why they can't maintain, sustain, or grow or expand any of their services. It's finding those folks that have the passion to serve and making sure that they have a wage that they can support themselves with. There are other challenges as well, I think, in the system that impact how services are developed or expanded or sustained, and that has to do with an environment where you feel like the sand is shifting frequently with changes in regulation or changes in requirements, and trying to make sure that you're providing those services the way that you're being asked to and being required to, while not trying to pass along some of those burdens to either the staff that are actually implementing those services and or the providers that you have, such as sponsored providers, and overwhelming them with the changes. There's increased scrutiny on these services. There is what seems to be a never-ending series of audits and or evaluations or reviews where folks are wanting to look behind and see what you're doing, and the leadership of programs, their energy and their resources are really being redirected to provide that element and address that challenge while trying to protect the staff that are actually involved with providing the services. It's difficult not to get them involved because it's often required from auditors and or reviewers. However, it really takes away and drains the resource, if you will, to be able to have the energy and the passion as a staff member to continue that when it's constantly on top of you. And so I think Jennifer's right, it is workforce, but I think there are other elements involved with that. And I think to be able to maintain a staff group that has the passion and desire to be able to provide these services. They didn't get into this business, if you will, to push paper and pile up documentation and tell someone they didn't do it right. They got into this to be able to support folks, to be able to address their needs, to be able to make sure that they're included, and to make sure that they have an opportunity to have a better quality of life and more involvement, like any of us might want to be involved. So I think those are also some of the challenges, and that also impacts workforce.
I want to talk about burnout, not from a staff standpoint, because Melissa, you're not a staff member, right? You are a family member, you are a sister, you're a mother and a grandmother. I'm curious from your standpoint, how you navigate the burdens of the system, the paperwork, and helping make sure that Beth has everything she needs.
Goodness gracious, it's overwhelming. And I've only been doing this as a provider for 5 years, been doing it for 43 as her sister. But in the short time that I have been doing this full time, I'm exhausted. I'm exhausted from the amount of paperwork that we have to do, the amount of rework I have to do on my paperwork. I still feel handcuffed in so many ways when it comes to being able to get a minute. My aunt came in from California, and my husband and I got our first vacation in 5 years. So it's real. And I even called the state, and I don't know whether it was which state agency I called last year, because I was getting so frustrated. Our mom moved in with us. My mom cannot sit with Beth for me to go to the grocery store unless she is a backup provider. That's crazy.
So, and to be a backup provider, for everyone who knows, there is 32-hour med training, there is safety, and it is a rigorous amount of training.
Yearly.
Absolutely.
Yearly.
To do that. CPR, all of that. And I'm not even touching all the requirements.
No.
Just so
yeah.
you can go to the grocery store.
So my mom's almost 80. She doesn't want to have to go through training. But in order for...
To care for her daughter.
To care for her daughter that she cared for. So it's just so many little things like that. And when I called the state, they were like, well, you know, you really don't have to go through an agency. Thank you, sir. You helped me tremendously. So, Mom, you got to do it again. Sorry. So we're still handcuffed in so many areas, even once we get the waiver, by regulations that just don't make sense. It just doesn't. And so, yeah, the burnout's real. It's hard.
Cynthia, your exercise at the end is powerful. Okay. To close your eyes and to put yourself in someone else's shoes, to walk a day in Melissa's shoes, to walk a day in Glenna's shoes. I'm curious, because you walked this road for 20 plus years. I'm curious if you could take a legislator with you for a day, what do you think that would be like for them?
Well, I would like to, if I was speaking to them, to invite each and every one of them to spend one day as a care provider, and to see the magnitude that is required to give healthy education, healthy guidelines, healthy support, real love, not bought love, and allow them to see the impact. I think we would change all kind of laws once they left at home, because then they would be able to put on those glasses and not just read documentation of someone's life. They would actually have lived it, and then they could see it on a different spectrum. Right now, everything is documented, so they're just reading. They don't know the people's lives. They haven't walked the mile in their shoes. And that's what that statement means. You don't know my story, so don't hate on my glory. You know, you don't know the impact that my life has changed. Taking on an individual or a family member, or like I said, even your own spouse. The magnitude, the love that you would want to give them, 100% of yourself. You know, everything is not on the paper. You have to actually go into those homes and live that life and see the challenges, see all the requirements to have a healthy, happy life. That's the key. Happy, healthy life. And right now, those of us that can do for ourselves, we got it going on. But What if you didn't have that going on? And you had to depend on someone to clothe you, to feed you, to take you to the doctor, to give you the basic necessities. How would you feel? And that's why I think legislators should actually visit homes and do a documentation of their experience, and you'll see a different light. The light will come on. It will come on.
I'd like to respond to that because I think that's a wonderful idea, and many of us have talked about that. In fact, we'd like to invite them for a weekend. Through the Arc of Virginia, we have a lot of kitchen table conversations with legislators. We invite them to our homes, and we're going to sit down at the kitchen table. But probably 2 hours is about the max we've gotten out of anybody. But now is the time to contact your legislators. And I'm sure since you all are going to have ambassadors, I'm sure you can talk with DePaul's, you can contact the Arc of Virginia. And if you're like, oh, that's too freaky scary, we can help guide you and walk you through that process so that you feel comfortable talking with your legislator. If a legislator got invited to 50 people's homes, I think it would have an impact, and they stayed at least an hour.
Yeah, absolutely. The beauty of the Arc of Virginia is when we went to Richmond, we just shared our stories. They got to talk policy. They did the hard part, the stuff that is probably easy to you guys, it's second nature, but we just shared our stories, and y'all talked policy and the impact. And which laws they needed to vote for. We just were there sharing our stories. So that was wonderful.
But sharing the stories is key, and we just need to smother them with contacts from families and allies who would. I'm pretty ashamed to be a Virginian. Now, I wasn't born here, so at least I don't have that on my back. But I think my mother was. I think it is sinful that we are one of the 10 top wealthiest states, yet as you heard in the documentary, we're 39 in supporting people with developmental disabilities.
Amen.
What is wrong with us?
And as we said it doesn't have to be an or. We can be number one in business and number one in how we care for people with disabilities. It doesn't have to be an or.
Right.
Does anybody have any questions from the audience? Yes, ma'am.
Hi, Lucy.
Hi, Shay.
I also work for the Arc of Virginia.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you. What keeps you going when you have a bad day and you're just drained? What keeps you going?
God. If you don't have faith, I don't know who you would depend on. And God is a living God. He's active. He's present. But you have to seek Him daily to keep your own sanity, more or less to support someone else. So God is my main source. He's my road to peace when there's confusion.
It's a great question about what keeps people going. Anyone else want to pipe in?
I'll say joy keeps me going. I know that without me, she doesn't have a fighting chance. So I have to get up when she gets up. And she motivates me. And like I said, she gets up, she's smiling, she's ready to go. So that actually keeps me smiling and ready to go.
Any other questions?
You're welcome.
Yes.
I can see that there might be difficulty in getting someone to do a whole weekend stay, legislator. So I'm curious, perhaps a more feasible ask, is there a movie, television show, a book or something that really shows an honest, true, realistic depiction that at the very least, like, hey, go watch this movie and you really understand it, that you would recommend, that you come across?
For legislators to look at?
Or just for someone who doesn't have to think about this issue until it affects someone they love, so for someone who, can choose not to be that invested in this, well, maybe you should. Let's dip your toe in this way. Watch this, and maybe you'll understand by the end of this movie, wow, what a journey, or what a struggle, or something. Is there anything that the average person could check out that you think would really be helpful?
By tomorrow morning, I'll have an answer, okay? I'm sure there is. It's just, we get a lot of testimonials and written stories from people, and we have recordings of people. And I think actually the folks that were shown in the documentary can help people put their toes into this. And I think people, at least in my life, people who have not been touched by disability, no family members, didn't know anybody, they're pretty darn shocked when they hear what is not going on about this waiting list. I think people who are on the outside just thought people with disabilities were taken care of.
Yeah.
But it's not good. So I will get some links if you have his, or give me your email, and we'll put some stuff up that if you could share, that'd be great.
If I could real quickly, just so you all know, this film will be, as of Saturday, will be shown on Third PBS Echo, which is a local television station run by Third PBS on channel 15.5, but it'll also be available on demand. And I'm absolutely certain that people that all who invited you to this will send you the link to that video.
Okay.
And if nothing else, you could share that with anybody who you wanted to get the understanding that those of us who didn't have the understanding will watch this film and gain something out of it. So it will be available as a resource, and we thank you guys for making it available.
Amen.
And I was gonna say too, Jamie, that there are several podcasts that are available. I know we have done some here at DePaul, other organizations have. There are some movies available, they specifically depict issues around labor or accessing services, more focused on the actual disability that persons have. But there are numerous podcasts and different things that you can watch that are specific to waiver, the difficulties on obtaining a waiver, the challenges that families have, and really the history of Virginia and the entire waiver system are out there. So we could certainly provide you some of that as well.
Yep. Allison's storytelling ability goes beyond documentaries. It goes to podcasts and blogs and written stories. So I would definitely encourage you to check out through DePaul. Yes.
And I was going to spare calling her out, but she went ahead and said something anyway.
What state is number one, and what's their defining difference?
That is a great question. I do not know the answer to that, but we can find that out. There are states that are doing much more for individuals with disabilities. Obviously, we saw that, but Cindle's got her hand up behind you. I bet you she might know.
I don't know which state is number one, but I do know we have a family that receives services with DePaul. Their daughter has not been able to gain waiver. They came from California, so they definitely said that California provided a lot more opportunities for the daughter than they have received here in Virginia.
Our family, you saw I have a daughter with a disability. Our family travels annually to conferences with families from around the world, and we compare notes, right, on the therapies our children get, on the services they get in school, and it's surprising the differences I hear. And all of the things that, California and New York, I do hear these like incredible stories that these families get. I mean, the second their children are born and identified with a disability, not when they're 19 years old. So there are definitely other states doing well, and we could learn from them.
Can I just add a little bit to that question? Typically, Arizona and the other states that have been mentioned have been ranked as better states, New York also, Pennsylvania. But the big research organizations here in the United States who have been doing that research and putting out number 1 through number 50, they are no longer ranking states. So we're kind of sorry to lose that, that data, because that's very powerful. So most recently, Virginia was 39th. As I
That's a
think you said.
2021 stat, I believe. Amanda, did you have a question?
As you all were talking, I thought, what would really be great is if you all ran for office. And my question was going to be, when are you going to do that? But I think I know the answer. I mean, Melissa, after hearing your talk about you can't leave Beth with your mom for 5 minutes, you might not be able to run for General Assembly. But Cynthia, I think you might be close to.
You think so?
I don't know. I think that's part. If you can't convince people with this seat, get a seat.
Absolutely.
Right. So just I'll plant that seed with you all.
Okay.
Beth, what about you?
I just feel comfortable being with my family.
Amen.
And that's
That
a choice,
means
right?
a lot to me.
You want to be able to make that choice.
Yes.
Choose the people around you.
Right.
Any other questions? All right. I want to thank each of you for coming this evening, for hearing the obstacles that our system poses that get in the way for people to have the quality of life they deserve, the life they deserve, for their caregivers to have the support they deserve. I'm going to turn it over to Daria. She is our development manager. We talked about funding. It takes money to make these things, and she's the woman who makes that happen. So I'll turn it over to her.
Sometimes. I will not ask anybody for money tonight, but if you're willing, you can find me after. We're always welcoming the help that it takes to do all of our work, but especially to do something like this. So it's been a really special night. I do want to thank those sponsors. But before I get to them, we want to thank all of you and everyone that was in the video. It's super, super special for you all to open up your homes and your stories and your life experiences, and we really appreciate each and every one of you. We think about you in our work all the time. I know I do. We want to thank Allison also. She is our, where is she? She's back there. There she is. She's poured her heart into this, as she does with everything, and with Hello Studios. We couldn't have done this without her and them, and so thank y'all so much for all that too. It turned out wonderful. And then again, our sponsors. Pinnacle has been our presenting sponsor. Anything we take to them, they're so willing to help us out. And like I said, when we talked about this, they had no questions. They just said, okay, here's your check. And same with Marcia McLennan and Segra. They've done the same things. I literally don't even have to say anything to them. I can shoot them an email, and they'll send us money to do something like this. So it's really special. Great folks at all those businesses, too. And I know you saw it in the video. And Sindel and Rachel are here from our options at DePaul. And we've got a one sheet. At the end of the video, we talked about things that you can do to help us do this work. And then everybody's kind of touched on them here. So I just want to reiterate, please share this video. So much work and effort went into it. Share it with anybody you can get to watch it. I'm going to make my kids watch. I'm going to send it to everybody at church. I've got a lot of work to do, not on DePaul time tomorrow. And I want to encourage everyone to do that. Anyone that you can get to listen to this story, I bet they have no idea the details. It's embarrassing about our state. I was born here. I don't like that number. So, take it upon ourselves. I'm going to do it. I've never written to anybody in the General Assembly, and I've got a great last name, Van Ravstein. They're going to hear from me. But I think collective, we all did that. And if we all got 10 people to do that, maybe we would have, the only way to get more money for this, when I'm done at DePaul, maybe that's what I'll go ask for money for this. So do that as well, and share this video. I can't say that enough. It's important. If neither of those are comfortable, reach out to me or anybody else at DePaul. We always need people to be ambassadors for our work. Anything you can do to help, if that's volunteering at a First Fridays or helping me go ask a business for additional support, we welcome all that help and support and need it very badly. If you're just comfortable writing a check, we're fine with that too. You can log onto our website. You can email me or call me. I like to talk to people. I like to tell these stories. We've got a bunch more. So the last and final thing I'll say, if I can not get teared up, is just if you see individuals with disabilities in the community, talk to them. Make them feel the way they deserve to be felt out in the community. Wrap your arms around them, like post-COVID when we're all done. let them know that there's people, there's good people. I hear all the bad, we all hear all the bad, but this room's full of good people. There's so many more good people out there. Just let them know and let them feel it. I think the way we're all feeling it. I told them I wasn't going to be able to do this without tearing up, so. But they're just special, and everybody should know. And everybody should know of this issue, so. When you leave, whew, there's Cindel and Rachel are out back. They've got a little bag that reiterates that with all the tear jerks. But really, thank you all so much for coming and listening and spending your time with us. And if there's anything we can do, or if you think of anything I should be doing, by all means, let us know. Thanks, Amanda. We're going to miss you so much. Okay, I think that's it. We're done, right?
Thank you very much.
It's incredible to do this for 22 years.
Yes, ma'am. It's
You're amazing.
been a challenge, and I work a full-time job. I work for the government.
Oh my gosh.
Shoko, you remember me, I remember you as well.
Yes, can we go to the Yeah, we're going to go to General Assembly right now.
Yeah, Shoko. Just go ahead and just camp out right there. How about that?
How are you doing this?
Yes, I sure do.
I'm sorry you
remember
experienced that
I
cold
just I copied and pasted it from the email.
Was
and put it in the GPS.